The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, morrismedialive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Good day. Blessings be upon you. Welcome to Faith Without Borders. I'm your host, Pastor Kelvin Sauls. It is so good to have you with us on this day. Menthol Sunday is what we are celebrating. And so we're giving God thanks and praise for this opportunity to be here with you. And today we're going to get down and connect faith and health, especially coming together with the faith of us as a people and our health, who we are, of course, by way of our faith, as African Americans, black immigrants, the entire, black community and diaspora, as well as our sisters and brothers on the continent. We're going to hit a little bit on that as well. But then also how that connects with our faith, especially on this International No Menthol Sunday. As you know, here at Faith Without Borders, our goal is to see how we can facilitate a progressive and a prophetic platform that invites thought leaders to come and be in dialogue with us around some of the thought-provoking issues that we are dealing with, and also to see how we can then engage in solutions-driven dialogue. So it ain't just about talking, it's also about what we can do about what we're talking about. So we're excited about that, and today's going to be no different given the guests, that we have with us today. International Menthol Sunday, and so we're looking forward to it. It is a day set aside for us as faith communities to come together to see how we can raise awareness once again to the historical connection that we have with tobacco. Secondly, to see how we can analyze the predatory practices, of big tobacco. Thirdly, to look at the consequences, of tobacco, and then to see what we can do about it. So it's always about, how we can facilitate systems change, how we can, challenge big tobacco by way of policy, and the practices that they engage. And we're doing this around our faith because of the what I call unholy alliance that there has been between tobacco and some faith leaders, as well as some of our civil rights organizations, and so there's a conflicting message going on, a sense of ambiguity. Well, there is nothing about there's nothing ambiguous about the fact that 45,000 black people die from tobacco-related illnesses. And it attacks our respiratory health in such a way that it wasn't a surprise that during COVID, we, were the ones, mostly affected by, COVID-19 as part of the comorbidities that we challenge with. And so, we're going to be checking into this and looking at it and have a conversation and see what it's about as we continue our time together. I am so glad to be joined by three individuals, and we're going to start with Carol Gruder, who is right here with me in the studio. Thanks be to God, for the last, a couple of months I've been in here. It was me, Felicia, and Morris, all right? And Morris is our security around here to make sure that no COVID get into the studio. So Morris did a good job. Look, here we are, and we can now have guests. So Kelma Gruder is here. She's the co-chair for the African American, Tobacco Control Council here in California. And Carol and I go way back.
Way back.
And so glad that we've reconnected, especially around this challenge that we started, with while I was, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we've continued to be in touch and then reconnected again around, this whole challenge, So Carol is here, and I'm going to invite her to kick us off, before I bring in, our other guests, just to quickly give us a good, a historical overview, around this whole, tobacco challenge that we are facing, from picking it and now to smoking it, and the consequential, impact it has had, on the lives of Black people. So, Carol, it's good to see you.
Good morning. It's great to see you and great
Yes,
to be here
yes,
with
yes.
you. And you are my first real life event. It's in over a year, and so it's a pleasure to start here with you. And
Yes,
that I'm immunized. I got my second shot last week. And Miss Felicia took my temperature when I came in, so we're observing our protocols. But as we come back online and come back to life, so we're looking forward to getting back to our lives again, and that's coming. So it's coming. It's been a long year, hard year, but we're coming back. We're coming back better. We're coming back stronger.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
We're coming to you live from South Los Angeles, Morris Media Studios. We're always glad that Felicia is here to make sure that this happens for us. So let's kick it off, Carol.
Yes.
Can you just give us just a quick,
Sure.
historical overview?
I can definitely do that. It's my honor. So we're here today for No Menthol Sunday. Got to put that no in there. And No Menthol Sunday is the African American expression of the international day of observance that was started by the World Health Organization for World No Tobacco Day. So World No Tobacco Day actually takes place on May 31st every year all over the world. And because in the United States that coincides with our Memorial Day, sometimes it gets muddled in there because, we want to do our barbecues and have our days. So we decided to pull it out and to rebrand it in something that would be meaningful for our people. And so we know that without the church, without the Black church, we would not have our freedom, probably wouldn't have our civil rights. The role that our churches play in our lives is so fundamental and really different, I think, than other cultures and other people, because we depended on our churches to be our organizing bodies. And so just as our churches fought for our civil rights, health is the foundational right that all other rights are built on, because if you don't have health, you don't have anything. You could be the richest person in the world, and if you don't have health, you don't have anything. It doesn't matter. So we're just so happy that this day was created in conjunction at that time with the National African American Tobacco Prevention Network, which is now the center, and Dr. Bolden will talk about that. But we claim this for ourselves, and we have been working. So I believe this is our seventh observance, and this year is a new day. And indeed, it is a new day because commercial tobacco control is happening in this country like no other time. We are claiming our agency to defend our communities. And this year, the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council, we actually sued the Food and Drug Administration around their inaction on menthol because they were mandated to do something about it in 2009, and we're now in 2021. So we had great news in that they are going to be moving to take menthol off the market. But in the meantime, in between time, we need our cities and our states and our counties to keep enacting the local legislation to get the products off. And we need our full community to support and pour some love on our Black smokers, because nobody loves Black smokers more than we do. And we want them to know that this is for them. This is not against them. This is for them.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful to mention, Carol, because, our disposition is a disposition of compassion and not condemnation. We understand, on the one hand, the predatory practices, but we also understand the stresses that our folk are under. First, just to be Black in America is stressful
tremendous stress
by itself.
Tremendous
and
stress.
So, in the work that we've been doing last year, here in South LA with our community, that's what we heard from folk. Is, don't put us down. So we're here to lift you up. We're here to deal, with this habit that is just so destructive to your health. We do it because this addiction. And we do this because we love you around it. So I think it's very, very important. That's why, I just love the handles, of, the council, which is about saving Black lives.
Saving Black lives. Yes.
I mean, that's just, says it right there around that.
That is our website, savingblacklives.org.
Carol mentioned that the theme for this International No Menthol Sunday is a new day. I want to read the scripture that comes from Isaiah 43, 18 and 19, which reads, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I'm doing a new thing." In other words, I'm inviting you into a new day. Yes. See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. And that's what it's about. It is about seeing how we can raise our awareness, how it is that we can, refine, our perception around what God is doing in us and through us. And one thing that I know that God is about life. Not just life, but life to the fullest. And that's what it's about. I want to bring in our second guest today, who's joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Greg Bolden is the Community Initiative Program Manager at the Center for Black Health and Equity. And so glad to have met, Greg, and the work that he and the center, are doing. And so he's joining us, this morning from the ATL. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good morning, Pastor Saul. I'm doing excellent. How are you doing this morning?
Good. It's just good to see you, and thanks for joining us again. Why don't you just quickly tell us a little bit about, what the center, is about, what it's doing, but then also connected with this international, movement around, no menthol.
Well, the center is actually designed to help and to facilitate programs within the African American community, but more than that, the Black diaspora, as you so adequately stated earlier. We actually focus on social programs, but also in communities and within the community around chronic diseases and those things that disproportionately affect the Black community. The center has been in existence for 20 years. Initially, it was called the National African American Tobacco Prevention Network. Last year, we did a rebranding because we identified areas within our communities that we were already focusing on. Initially, it was tobacco, but now it's HIV, it's cancer, it's social justice issues. So we broadened our scope, and thus we felt the need to rebrand and rename ourselves to the Center for Black Health and Equity. Mm-hmm. So, and this year, like Carol said, was the seventh year. The first year in 2014 was when 50 pastors came together as a part of our faith initiatives, and they actually were the designers of the program. Then the following year, we had our first national No Menthol Sunday. Mm-hmm. This year, we've expanded it, and now we're international. So we've got churches and faith communities who are participating with us in Africa, India, Canada, and across the world. This is a great explosion of health information and awareness because menthol has disproportionately affected the Black community. And we actually find that we're more than 45,000 individuals in the African-American community die each year as a result of tobacco use. And in some areas, we have found that it may be as high as 47,000 that have died each year. So what we want to do is we want to educate the community about the scourge of the tobacco itself, but the wiles of the tobacco industry. The tobacco industry has targeted us for the last 65 years, while Menthol did not come into existence until the early 1930s. The African American community has been targeted since the 1950s when they found a market where it was only 5% of African Americans that were smoking each year, smoking menthol, but now it's up to about 85% of African Americans that actually smoke menthol cigarettes. Mm-hmm. So this is an opportunity for us to help educate our community, increase awareness, and hopefully folks will give up tobacco today and make it a lifelong commitment to give up menthol use as a whole. We need to do this, but the only way we can do it is do it through community engagement, through collaboration, and with the assistance of organizations like AATCLC, Amplify, and other organizations across the nation and across the world that are willing to work with us and to bring about this change. We know that the tobacco industry is going to fight us on this. Recently, with the ruling from the FDA that says that they will be banning menthol, we're up for a fight. We have to have the community engaged to fight with us. And we'll give out more information about that. And then, during the program, actually, I'd like to go to our website and actually show folks how they can get involved with us, for not just today, but throughout the year.
Yeah, and just to say, I mean, today is really it's a culmination of what's already happened, right? But it's also a springboard for what can happen. So it doesn't mean that the goal is for folk to at least quit for a day, 3 days, a week, and of course, forever. But what we are saying is these resources are available throughout the year.
That's correct.
And we invite people to discern how they can pull together relevant, programs, for your, particular area. And that engagement is important because this is a long haul fight. And I'm going to ask Carol to talk a little bit about, how this, the strides we've made legislatively around policy, and also what lies ahead. Because sometimes we think that because the FDA made a decision, we can now go ahead and chill and everything is hunky dory. Well, guess what? When that happens, of course, Goliath, the tobacco industry, they'll just go ahead and reinforce. Through all these what I call predatory tentacles that they have, and again, it's unfortunate that some of those tentacles, are into, our faith communities, so they have access to pulpits, right, as well as with some of our civil rights organizations. Not all of them, and Carol will share, who've come on board, as well as some of our, sororities around it. But let's quickly just talk about the legislative piece in terms of, where we are in California and nationally.
Definitely, let's do that. So, right, and so when we talk about No Menthol Sunday, this is a movement. So it's not about just today. Today is the official No Menthol Sunday, and we want to look at it as a kickoff for years and really probably a decade's more of work that we have ahead of us to get this issue resolved. And so we're in this until it's done. The FDA's announcement, it's not banned. They announced that they are going to enter into the rule-making process, and that in of itself is a very convoluted process. It have to put the rule out, and the tobacco industry will probably sue. In the meantime, they're working all of their minions all over the country to try to disrupt and distract from what we're doing. And so when we move ahead, and so it is a David and Goliath battle. When the President Obama actually signed the Tobacco Control Act in 2009, at that time, all the flavors in cigarettes were taken off. And it was agreed that flavors hook children, but menthol, which is the mother lode of all flavors, was left in. Black people, we're not the only folks that smoke menthol, but over 85% of black smokers who smoke menthol. And the reason for that is that these products were seeded in our community, sprinkled. Cigarettes don't fall from the sky. The tobacco industry was there giving them out to children physically giving out cigarettes. They were infiltrating our African American leadership organizations, as Dr. Val Yerger, who's going to come on with us, documented in her research paper, Smoking with the Enemy. So these things we know, and they continue to happen, and they just it's a 2.0 now, so they update, and we trail behind it and try to update as well. So when President Obama signed that act, we were actually going back to the FDA. They were charged with, thanks to the Congressional Black Caucus, that they had to do something about menthol. So they met. They had research papers. They, the industry sued to block certain things. And initially, we were focusing on getting the FDA to do the right thing. But when we realized that that would not happen, then Chicago came online as the first city to do something about menthol. And they simply created a zone around schools, a buffer zone, we called it, where these products could not be sold within a 500-foot radius of schools. So that's important for Chicago because it's very dense, high retail density, liquor stores and tobacco stores on every corner that children have to go by. So when Chicago did that, and the industry sued and Chicago prevailed, that opened the door for cities to see that they had the right, they have the responsibility to protect their citizens. So they cannot, a city and a state, they cannot do what the FDA is going to get ready to do, which is to stop the manufacture of these products so that they will no longer be made by Reynolds American and British American tobacco. So the smuggling issue will go away because there will be nothing to smuggle because these products will cease to be manufactured anymore. But in the interim, cities and states can say, we don't want these deadly products sold to our people any longer, our communities. Mm-hmm. And that's been happening across this country. San Francisco was the first major city, and a supervisor from the district where I grew up in Baby Hunters Point in the hood to lead the fight. And now in San Francisco, you can no longer buy a package of Newport cigarettes and other flavored tobacco. Our state, California, actually was the second state behind Massachusetts to do it. Governor Newsom signed it into law in June 2020. The tobacco industry promptly collected signatures, so that will now be before the voters in November of 2022. And in between now and then, you're going to see an Armageddon of all kinds of advertising saying that the law is racist against black people, that black people we want our menthols and we have a right. You're not taking these products away from white people. Literally, that's what people are saying. So what I say is, if the neighborhood's on fire, let's start with the house that's on fire to put that fire out. Mm-hmm. And our house is on fire. And so people should be happy that for once, the focus is on our community, on helping us. And we are helping black smokers. We are not hurting them. And we're also fighting for services. We're creating services. Our California Department of Public Health, they're rebranding. Our quit line is now going to be called Kick It, Kicking It. And so, and what a strong word. Instead of quit, we want to kick it. We want to kick it out of our neighborhoods. We want to kick it out of our bodies. We want to let the industry know they do not own us anymore. And the fight that the tobacco industry had for our community was like the movie The Godfather. Many of the practices that they did, they would not do them to white children. And this is in their own internal documents. Don't do this in the suburbs. They reserve that for the black folks. And in that famous scene in The Godfather, when they said about bringing the drugs in, we'll leave that for the coloreds because they have no soul. Mm-hmm. And that's how we have been treated, even though the people have on suits and ties and they come and take you out to dinner, when they support our fraternities and and sponsor our conferences. They're very nice, but what they're selling is death and destruction. And when we, as the gatekeepers, the people who are in control to let these folks in, we are selling them access to our children, to our people's brains. And the word addiction is about brain chemistry, and it's about access to populations. And so we want to cut off the access, and we want to help the people who are already addicted, and that people feel like it's their own fault. And so whether you think you chose it or not, whether you think, that was your free will, there were so many things at play that you had no idea of. And that's what we want to stop and interrupt the flow of.
Yeah, and that is so powerful to understand that, because a lot of people are going through this guilt, and this, kind of, it's almost like the blame the victim piece.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, let's be clear. The tobacco industry is the best example of racial capitalism at work. All right? That industry brought black folk over here as racial capitalism was developed. And now they continue to use us to justify the fact that we need this, that it's our right to have it. Well, what we are saying is, you're not going to bamboozle us anymore. Tobacco is destructive, it is addictive, and we are taking agency to fight, around the manufacturing of it and access to it. So that's very, very important for us to realize. We cannot leave out this whole piece around, how they're making money off of, our backs, and that started, way back in 1619. And so we got to be aware of that around all of it. I want to bring in, Dr. Valerie Yerger, who is professor of health policy at the University of California at San Francisco, and also a founding member of the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council here in California. Good morning, Dr. Val. Are you there? Okay, so we'll.
No, I am here.
There she is. Good morning. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm fine. I'm showing up green. Do I look green to you guys?
No,
you look beautiful.
We see your beautiful face, and we appreciate.
Okay, so the green is on my end, so that's good to know.
Yes, and we appreciate all the powerful work that you've been doing, and Carol mentioned the whole piece. We're going to talk about Kick It, because we got to talk about Kick It, because I'm excited about that and how to introduce that, all that piece to our faith leaders. Just to talk about, the tobacco industry's predatory, marketing of these products in our community, and the possible role melanin plays, in, nicotine addiction. I know that's, your research, and when we were together on Friday, I mean, you kind of schooled me on all of that, and just in terms of the chemical pieces and all of that. And a lot of us don't know that. We try to be cool, and we don't know that we are actually being a fool around, using, these products, that's so destructive to us. So do you want to just enlighten us around that?
Yes. I love this opportunity to talk to Black folks about a product that is destroying us. I'm trained and licensed in the state of California as a naturopathic doctor, and I often tell people that I was the first home birth midwife licensed to deliver babies at home in California, and was very excited about starting my practice when I had an opportunity to work on a small project at UC San Francisco, looking at these tobacco industry documents. So that would have been like the late 90s or early 2000s. What I saw in these documents compelled me to give up my clinical practice, because I felt that there was information that our community did not have. And what I was seeing, and all of it makes sense if you just stop and think about it, it's just that it's not very intuitive. One being that back in 1964, when the first Surgeon General's report came out on smoking, white people who were educated, who had money, began to decrease their use of tobacco. But because so many of us who are Black and people of color and other marginalized groups, we're dealing with a whole lot of inequities that just keep us under stress. And the tobacco industry knew this, and they knew that if they could just capture individuals who needed a coping mechanism, that they could continue to build their profits as an industry. And so as the tobacco industry was just looking at Black folks in particular, they saw that Black folks were smoking menthol, particularly Salem and cool cigarettes. So it was during the late 60s, early 70s, when the tobacco companies started to compete against one another, and they were doing it very aggressively in Black communities. And so what were they marketing? They were marketing menthol cigarettes. And this little company called Lorillard, nobody had even heard of Lorillard. They had a menthol cigarette called Newport, and they wanted to be a part of this game. So they were dumping their cigarettes into the communities, giving out free cigarettes, showing up with vans, doing all sorts of things that really tobacco companies had not really done before in terms of marketing their products. So it's not surprising that African Americans in particular are disproportionately using menthol cigarettes. It's not because we're Black. is not because we have a particular genetic makeup, because if you look at our genetic makeup, there's so much variability within Black folks that you can't say all Black folks are made up this sort of way. And because they're made up this sort of way, they just have this likeness for menthol cigarettes. In fact, that was the question that I was asking myself back in the early 2000s. Like, what is it about Black folks? We can't call it race. Race is a social term. Racism, of course, is something that we deal with as a stressor, but in terms of our biology, we're so much alike across the globe. But there was something about Black folks that I wanted to try to understand, because if you looked at Black smokers, one of the things that you would find out was that, one, we start smoking regularly later in life, and two, we were smoking less cigarettes when compared to white folks. However, we had higher rates of disease and death due directly to tobacco. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were just talking about melanin. That's one thing that we as Black folks, people of color, have in common. So I went into the tobacco documents and looked up what the industry knew about melanin. And let me tell you something. And when I say they, tobacco companies have known since the late 50s that tissues that contain melanin, and melanin is that substance that gives us our skin color, our eye color, our hair color, but tissues containing melanin accumulate nicotine. So these folks who have been going into our communities, giving out free products because we thought we wanted these free products, they are going into our communities, making friends with some of our leaders that we have grown up to identify as individuals that we could trust. They were going into our communities, exploiting us, and never ever telling us that because you Black people have a certain amount of melanin, a higher amount when compared to the general population, you are accumulating nicotine at a higher rate. And not only that, not only nicotine, but also the tobacco-related carcinogens. These are the substances that cause cancer. We as a people are accumulating larger amounts of tobacco-related substances, the carcinogens and nicotine, because of the melanin in our skin. And that is something that we as a people have to understand, because I want to say this too, melanin is a beautiful thing, and it's something that we should protect. It is something that we should honor. It is something that we should raise our children about in terms of being able to protect something that has been given to us by God. And I will say this also, it is so beautiful a substance that there are researchers outside of the country who come from places like Japan, who are European, who are studying how to create melanin. We get it intrinsically, and we don't understand how important it is. So much so that there are billions of dollars of research going in to understand melanin. They don't call it melanin, they call it pigment. So when you have these societies of research on pigment, that's what they're doing. So I just would like for us as a people to start grasping and protecting ourselves and understanding the power that we have. And to do so on a day like No Menthol Sunday is just a perfect opportunity, because the other thing that I really, really, really think is important for us that we appreciate, but we don't make it the connection, is the power of prayer and the power of being in meditation. Because when we are in those states, we are not secreting stress hormones. And it is a time for us to do it intentionally and to do it outside of our faith-based structures, and to do it at home, to do it around the dinner table, to do it around our friends, to do it when we're on the phone, in the Zoom, to take those moments to understand that when we are in a place of peace, we are not producing stress hormones. We are not in a fight-flight response, which means that we're much more likely to collaborate. And I want to have a discussion. I'm going to let you get in because I can go on and on, but I want to talk about what the fight really should be and how we should do this fight, because I think that we can do it in a very smart way and get some very efficient, effective results very quickly if we do it intentionally.
Intentionally, that's the word, y'all. Intentional self-love. Love yourself. Take agency to protect yourself. That's very, very important. Love yourself, protect yourself, and more importantly, get to know yourself. Get to know who you are as a black person in terms of your humanity, your ability, and your agency. Because if you don't know it, others know about it, and they always stand ready to exploit it. So that's what this is all about, as we talk about it. I mean, the intentionality of it is key around how we can engage in these practices and make them a lifestyle. Faith is a lifestyle, y'all. It ain't just a once a week check-in, into a building, right? It's not just a now and then 911 call to God when you're desperate for something, right? It is daily practices, and we're going to talk some more, about that. I want to transition us to talk a little bit about, some of the arguments, that are out there being used around, this fight, for the ban of the sale of, menthol. But I want to show this quick, video that just brings in, some spoken word for us. We know art soothes the soul. And so we're going to check out this video. And then when we come back, we're going to deal with some of the other arguments that folk engage in. And then we can continue the fight.
We are not profit, but Big Tobacco thinks every black face is another place to make a quick buck. Give to our communities to gain trust, but still filling us with poisons and calling it culture. Pick bills off our bones like vultures. I am not a prophet, but I can see menthol sell cheaper in black hoods, and they're harder to quit because they numb the throat. Their market is the black and the stupid. That's a quote. It's time for black folks to see menthols as another attack. Visit wearenotprofit.org to fight back.
All right, and that's what we're doing, y'all. We fighting back. Carol, you said something when we were together on Friday, when people, challenge the fact that we're doing this, and they throw up all kinds of excuses, and you say it again this morning, we are taking agency. That is so important to understand that you can take agency to live a life of wellness and of wholeness, and that's what it's about. I want us to get into the arguments, that our opponents, make, and I have no problem, calling, these folk opponents. We all in the fight, and we fight with dignity and with respect, of course, but we unapologetically fight, for the safety and the health of our community. One of them, is this whole piece around cultural affinity. I know Dr. Shirley Weber, when she addressed, the California legislature around this, I mean, she literally went off.
She went off.
On this one.
A beautiful sight to see.
And it was just so powerful. So that's the one. And then we want to talk about enforcement, and I'm going to bring in Greg again also to talk about that, the equity piece around enforcement that the center has worked on, and he can, share on that. But let's talk about some of the arguments. Let's start with this one, called cultural affinity.
Right, the cultural affinity. So there are folks on the other side, many of whom are brothers and sisters and when you see people who are defending menthol, or that it's our right, or that we're adults, they need to disclose. They need to say whether or not they're accepting money from the tobacco industry. And I've yet to seen any person who just kind of organically woke up one day and said, I of all the things I want to fight for my people, I want to fight for them to be able to smoke a mentholated cigarette. And it's interesting because initially when we started in tobacco control, that's what people would tell us is like, out of all the issues, why are you cared about these cigarettes? And I'm like, cigarettes, that's our number one killer. That's killing 45,000 black people every year in this country. In the past 20 years, that's killed 1 million mothers and fathers, grandparents, people in their 50s and 60s. That's young. You know, the longer you live, the younger that gets. So now it's flipped the other way, that when you see people who organize a protest for mentholated tobacco, then the first question is, why are you doing this? And do you accept money from Reynolds American Incorporated? Do you accept money from British American Tobacco? And that somehow we have a cultural affinity. So tobacco control is about social community norm change and social norm change. And one of the things that the industry has just so successfully done through so many different avenues is to embed these products in our community, so that people feel like they are a part of our fabric, and we just need to categorically reject that notion that we do not have a cultural affinity for menthol. We smoke mentholated products because we were bamboozled, and they were just dumped in our communities and associated with Black liberation. And I think about, if you remember when Black exploitation movies first came out, and it's kind of like a rap music in a lot of ways, that those initial messages were deterred and turned into very violent messages, and messages that really had nothing to do with our liberation, our culture, our freedom, and just became more sensationalistic. So with the menthol, in that same way, they latched on to our culture, to hip hop, to whatever was out at the time. And so folks are saying that this is a part of us, and so it is not a part of us. And they're also saying that this will lead to, Eric Gardner is the case in point, supposedly selling single cigarettes because we raised the taxes so high, and we want to raise the taxes. We want cigarettes to cost $30 a pack, and that money to be invested in helping people stop smoking. But Eric Gardner was actually just standing there when he was assaulted and murdered by the New York Police Department, of which they were not held accountable for that. Coming over here, I was a little late because I was watching. They had a report on Ben Crump on CBS this morning, Sunday morning. Watch it if you get a chance. So I'm a mother. Dr. Val's a mother. Big sons, and so we're not trying to do anything that would damage our community or cause increased police interaction with our people, with our men. And so when the tobacco industry cynically takes our legitimate concerns and fears and flips it, when they've been the racists, they've profiled us, they've killed us, and flips that like they're protecting us to keep these products on the market, it's just crazy, and it makes no sense. And so for every Eric Gardner, we had Amadou Diallo, who was standing on his stoop. We had Philando Castile, who was driving in his car with his girlfriend and a toddler in the back and shot. So these issues, these problems, and when Ben Crump was interviewed this morning, he names those names, and just the names just from this past year, and that's a fight that we have to undertake, and leaving menthol and these products on the market is not going to help us. Mm-hmm. And I liken it to, before social media, we had these conversations with our boys about, if you're stopped by the police, be respectful, put your hand, and that's not the problem. The problem wasn't about a teenage boy being a little disrespectful to a police officer. Mm-hmm. That's not the issue. And just like that's not the issue, it's not mentholated tobacco products and whether or not somebody standing on the corner smoking a menthol, because it's not about the individual in the first place. The police are not going to come and ask anybody what they're smoking. We raised the age to 21. We don't want you people asking how old you are. Smoking is a public health issue. So the enforcement, it should be from a public health standpoint. But what the FDA is going to do is to take these products completely offline. So that will really eliminate the whole manufacturing smuggling issue. But in the interim, we have to deal with police reform. We have to deal with police brutality. We have to deal with officer-involved shootings. We have to make people be accountable when these things happen, and personally accountable. So we're all in for that. One of the things about the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council is that we really are activists. We were fighters before we took on to commercial tobacco control. Dr. Phil Gardner, the other co-chair, he was a Black Panther. I was the president of the Pan-African Students Union in college. I was woke before that, before woke ever came into being, that expression. I've been woke all my life. Mm-hmm. Dr. Val, her dad was an advisor to the Black Panthers in Oakland back in the day. So we bring that to us. And tobacco control was really like the stepchild that no one was paying attention to, because we have all these other things to deal with, and we must deal with them as a people. But in the meantime, we can't let the biggest killer predator sit back at the cut and kill 45,000 black people every year and addict another generation of our children to replace the ones who are dying. That day has come, and that day has gone. And so whether you smoke, whether you don't smoke, we need the whole community to know this is a communal problem. We all have lost somebody, and this is important about the church, because generally church folks they live a little healthier, preaching to the choir. So we want the church to get out in the community and to really let folks know this is for you, this is to support you, we love you. And I never want to hear anybody say, I don't smoke, I don't like cigarettes, because that's like saying I don't like breast cancer, I don't like homelessness. What are we doing about it? Because it's a communal issue, and that's what No Menthol Sunday is about, is to really make our community, help them to wrap their arms around this issue. And with that, we have resources now, because with the tobacco taxes that we fought for, we've created programs. One of them is our statewide coordinating center. Amplify.love is the website. We have small funding pots for our community to help us do this work. We do the heavy lifting with the state in terms of all the paperwork you have to do to get funding. And so we're that conduit. And I just want to highlight one of the community engagement groups is Dat Yoga Dude, because it's a brother in Riverside. And now because of COVID, anybody can access these things all over the state. So he's really working with our men and our boys to learn a different way to be, to relax, to meditate, to take care of your mind, and to have peace in your soul. And that's what we're bringing. It's a comprehensive program that we're bringing. It's not just about all the doom and gloom, but when you raise kids, if they're doing something good, it's hard. Idle hands are the devil's workshops. So they're doing something good and positive, it's harder to do those negative things. And we want to create communities that are healthy, where people want to have fun, where people want to enjoy and take care of themselves in a holistic way. And we want to make that sexy somehow. So we're working on making that sexy.
Ain't that wrong with making things sexy? I'm telling you, especially if it's going to save lives. There we go. We got to hook up with that yoga guy and see what
that
we can,
yoga dude. Yes.
That yoga dude.
He's a
there
wonderful,
we go.
wonderful brother.
Yes, intentionality, and then we also got to realize, as Carol said, it's also intersectionality. I mean, all of these, the thing that I love about being at Community Health Councils, which is a co-sponsor of today's, program, in addition to Amplify and, the Tobacco Control Council, is that, we work hard to connect the dots, between the challenges that we are facing, connect the dots between the drivers of disparity, you see. And that is so important, that we try and figure out a way to connect even our programs that we then do, and then to connect it with the policy that we do. That is so important in terms of how we need to approach this. It's sectional in so many ways. It is multifaceted around that, and so that's the approach that we're trying to bring and connect, and that's I think what the Tobacco Control Council is doing through Amplify and all of that. And the connection is not just here in the United States, but around the world, and we'll talk about that a little bit. I want to bring in Dr. Bolden here just to connect around that enforcement piece, and the equity in enforcement, because I know the center has worked on how we deal with that particular argument when folk are saying, we have to be aware of the unintended consequences, right, of this. Well, we are aware of that. That's why we support, police reform, and we challenge, police violence and all of that, and state-sanctioned violence. We're aware of that. However, our focus is on the intended consequences of around 45,000 people that 45,000 souls that we lose every year because of tobacco. Can you say a little bit more about that whole policy piece and just the strategy around that, as well as other ways that we can collaborate in the community?
When we begin to talk about equity, let me use the example of January 6th. January 6th, we saw an insurrection that took place in Washington, D.C., and we saw how they treated those individuals that laid siege to the Capitol on that day. We're not saying, saying equity. We don't want you to go in and shoot those other folks like you do us. We don't want you to shoot us. We want you to treat us the same way as you treated them. Now, we're not going to say that we're going to go out and we're going to cause an insurrection like they did on that day. But when we're talking about the tobacco industry, we're talking about how they infiltrated our community. What we want you to do is we want to get the same level of protection that you give to other people. We want to make sure that when we're talking about losing 45,000 African Americans each year to the tobacco industry's scourge that they've and the illegal. Well, it's legal to sell tobacco products, but it is a scourge on our community. We want you to treat us in the same manner that you did when you did opioid addiction. When the opioid addiction came to your doorsteps, you saw it as a health issue. Yet when cocaine was dumped into our communities, you saw us as criminals and you locked us up as Black people. And we know from the research that was done by Dr. Victor DeNoble when he worked for the tobacco industry, we know that tobacco, nicotine in and of itself, affects the brain in the same area as nicotine. So we want to treat this as an addiction. At the Center for Black Health and Equity, what we want to do is we want to focus on our health. We want to focus on our collaboration within the community. We want to build capacity within our community. We want to lead and tell truth to the issues that we're faced with. The idea that, like Carol put it so eloquently, that police is going to increase their interaction with African Americans simply because they're smoking a cigarette just has not been proven. We dare those who are putting out these messages to show us where this has happened. But we can show you where tobacco use prevention has worked in the communities where we've eliminated tobacco use in our communities, where businesses have increased and their usership, bars and restaurants have increased. We can show you these areas. When I worked in California, when we began this process many years ago, there was one issue that the state of California wanted to address, just overall tobacco and overall tobacco use. They wanted to see a decrease in the number of lung cancer cases within 10 years. We were able to accomplish that in 8 years. There were a number of organizations that worked in California that continue to work. I myself was involved with the California Black Health Network, and we worked with over 500 churches throughout California who address the tobacco use. We want to see that same type of involvement when we're addressing menthol. And that's one of the reasons why No Menthol Sunday is so important. And here's the other thing that we have to look at. When the tobacco industry sees that we're moving away from tobacco, we've seen historically where they have gone directly to Africa. I remember there was a drought that was happening in Africa, and I can't remember the exact date, but we saw within the tobacco industry's documents in and of themselves, they would put out signs, and they actually had a black Marlboro man out there, and they put out signs that said, "We know you can't eat, but at least you can smoke a cigarette." That shows you the level of deprivation that they will go to address, to keep us addicted and to kill us. That is what they're doing. They're killing us with a product that's designed to kill us, where 1 in 3 who use tobacco will die as a result of tobacco use. So when we talk about equity, we want you to actually provide for us in the same level of respect that you give to other communities. We're talking about majority communities, we want to see that same level of equity. We want to see the same level of equity within our health system. We want you to treat us as the same way that you treat other folks. We want to treat tobacco use as an addiction. And the one thing that we want to do is we want to get rid of menthol. Here's one of the main reasons why we want to get rid of menthol. We know that when you use menthol, like Dr. Phil says, it makes the poison go down easier. But Dr. Val, she can attest to this. Also, what it does is it actually enables you to inhale deeper and hold the poison within your lungs for a longer period of time. And at some point, when you get if you were to get lung cancer in certain portions of your lungs, it becomes inoperable. and you have a death sentence. Now, we know that there's a lot of things that we've done around cancer that actually will help us to live longer and live better. But this is one of those poisons where we have to take control and we have to move to a position where we're taking charge of it, and we have to take control. We have to take that control back from the tobacco industry. And like Carol said, let's say within the next 5 years, the manufacturers won't be able to produce this product. But until then, we have to fight the good fight. We have to collaborate. And we have to not believe the lies that are being told within our communities. And we have to move to truth. And we're actually going to present that truth that's going to be available to everyone. And you can actually go to our website at No Menthol Sunday, and we have resources that are available for use year round, and we'll make those available each and every day.
Thank you so much. We're gonna check that out. Truth. I love that. I like that, because Scripture tells us you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We have entered a phase in this culture where deception and denial has become the norm. Around that. How we got there, that's another topic for another show for another day. We ain't gonna go there today, but we know that one of the biggest perpetrators of the big lie is the tobacco industry. I mean, let's just face it. And the sad thing is that so many of our organizations and our colleagues, they have literally jumped in bed with this lie that the tobacco industry continues to perpetuate. So, Carol, if you can tell us just a little bit around, who are our allies, around this, because we're making strides.
We're making big strides.
And then, of course, we still have, some folk we continue to pray for and work on. We're going to do that.
And we're going to pray for and work on.
But one thing, we ain't giving up.
No.
Because we love black people, and for us, all Black Lives Matter. And that's what it's about in the end, as we do the work that we're doing. You want to share a little bit about that?
I would love to. So our first the major group, sisters that came on board who really shine the spotlight and open ears to see what is going on is the sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. They they adopted a resolution back when we were still trying to get the FDA to do something, and they called on the FDA to take menthol off the market. And this is a thing, we've had this COVID pandemic and science, reality, and so what you just said is right on, because when you look at the science, when you look at the facts, there's no other way to go than to take these products off the market. There's just no excuse for them to remain on the market. And so whatever we need to do to take care of people to do that, we need to do that. But we just at first need to state the simple fact that these products kill people, we've been targeted, and we want them off. So when the Deltas did that, then other folks began to listen. And then proudly, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, of which I am a member and was president of the Berkeley branch, through Berkeley, through the California State Conference, we got a national resolution in Ohio. Dr. Val and I were there for the vote. And so they have, the NAACP on the national level have adopted and have stood firm, because there have been many, the tobacco industry, they never get, but they're going to come back and try to woo you back. So they have stood firm in their national resolution to encourage the local chapters and branches to get involved with the local efforts to get menthol off the market. So we've seen in San Francisco, when we did San Francisco, the NAACP, the local branch, came and supported in Oakland and Compton. And that's a powerful, it's a powerful step and presence that's needed for our city council people, our local elected officials, to see that there are African American folks, strong leadership groups who have power and agency, who are supporting taking these deadly products off the market, because there are fights in many battles, and the industries there giving money, corporate sponsorship, elected officials, donations who will accept them. And so we also want to encourage our elected officials to say, not just to quietly not take it, but to say publicly, I will not accept money from the tobacco industry. I will not accept money from the biggest killer of black people. I will find some money someplace else. So those two are major groups that have come on board, and the Black Nurses Association, also the Links nationally are supportive. In our lawsuit, the National Medical Association, which is our Black doctors, along with the AMA and ASH, were our co-plaintiffs against the FDA. So we're seeing such great leadership that we have not seen in these past 5 years. And it's wonderful. It's encouraging because it was, we were tilling rocks for so long, and now we're getting some water planted. We're seeing, the fruit of the labor, plants and flowers growing, and young people getting it, and people, taking our artists, taking the message and being artistic with it, things that we could never express in the way that they do, that get people involved and get people to understand what's going on with this issue.
Well, we also want to mention, that several denominations, have taken resolutions around this and challenging the tobacco industry. The African Methodist Episcopal Church, the United Methodist Church, and several other, mainline denominations, are coming out and saying that, faith and health are two sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. As I always said when I was at home, and we cannot save people's souls, in the sanctuary and kill their bodies in the fellowship hall. Right, those two things are connected, and we want to make sure that what we say in the pulpit is what we practice on the pavement. Mm-hmm. Around that. I want to bring in Dr. Val again before we look briefly, at the international piece, because I think we want to get there, as Greg also mentioned. But the main thing, Dr. Val, we don't want to forget is we are not saying that there aren't any stresses out there. We are not saying that people are not, dealing with a lot of challenges, and so we need all kinds of coping mechanisms, around that, and so we're not just saying, stop smoking, right? We're saying that, but we also want to introduce some other ways that people can deal, with the stress that we are facing on a daily basis, in our families, on the job, in our community, et cetera, et cetera. Do you want to just, say a little bit more, about, other ways that we can deal, with our stress? You mentioned the prayer and the meditation piece, and I know there are some others too. Would you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, and if I may, we talked about truths. One of the truths that we don't really talk about, that we should talk about more, is the fact that God created us to keep our species going, to perpetuate our species. That means that if I am lovable and can love others, I'm likely to connect. And so when we are free from being in a stress mode, we're much more likely to connect. And that's important in terms of working together. It's important in terms of collaborating. It's important in terms of not being reactive, because when we're stressing, and a lot of us are in a stress mode chronically, which is responsible really for 85 to 90% of chronic diseases are directly connected to the chronic, consistent flow of stress hormones. So anything that we can do to stop the secretion, if you will, of these stress hormones will keep us healthier. They will add to the well-being of our bodies. And if we are well, then that helps our community to get well. We are much more likely to be trusting in one another. So if we're going to be increasing our economic viability and doing business with one another, then we need to be in a trust mode. When we are stressed out and we're constantly in that fight-flight mode, we're in a survival mode. And when we're in a survival mode, it's not about us, it's about me. So we need to redirect our energy to being able to connect for the good of the whole of our community. So there are a few things that we can do to just stop mm-hmm. and to give ourselves permission and to teach our minds and our bodies to have those moments throughout the day where we just simply stop. And we just pay attention to where we are, even if it means just noting where your feet are and how they're placed on the ground, all the way up to your shoulders, to your head, like how you're holding your body. And if there are moments of opportunity to just relax those muscles that we don't even recognize are being tense. And so deep breathing can help us get there. Even if you just take a minute, just if you need to get away from the kids or family or your work co-workers, go to the restroom, just take some time and claim that space for yourself, simply to do some deep breathing. If that is all that you can do, where you just take a good deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Getting that oxygen in does wonders. And then again, I like to remind many of us who were brought up in a faith-based organization, we had grandmothers, we had great-grandmothers, we had people around us praying, and to recognize the importance of prayer and meditation. And while you're doing that prayer meditation, you can do things like your breathing, you can do some positive visualization. The body's mind, the brain is unable to tell the difference between when you're actually seeing something and when you're visualizing. There are a lot of folks, especially athletes, who understand that. We as general people don't understand that. Our children don't understand that. And just giving ourselves permission to visualize and to think things that are very, very positive will have a direct, immediate effect on us. There are other things that we can do. Is we need to also detach from social media, from our phones, even if it's just giving us permission to just put these devices down just for a little while, because it will help us to stay present. Other things that we can do is, if you can get more sleep, that will help. Obviously, moving around and exercising, even as little as 30 minutes, 3 times a day, will do wonders for us. And of course, being very conscious about the types of food, the nutrition that you put into your body will be very, very helpful. But I think for many of us who are very, very busy, even in COVID-19, when we're doing so much on Zoom, we're still even busier than ever. We just need to give ourselves permission to just stop. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I share that's very important to me is, don't go ahead and secrete cortisol or any stress hormone for just anyone. So if I'm gonna release any stress hormones, then I love that person. If I don't know you, I'm not gonna hurt me. And that is so important for us, the road rage and all the other things that we so constantly participate in, because we're in that survival stress mode. It's really hurtful to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. When you said, stop, it brings to mind, and I know, Carol, you and I share, the love of music. Stop in the name of love. Mm-hmm. Lord have mercy.
Have mercy, yes, yes.
We're coming to a close here, but we do want to touch on the international piece. Mm-hmm. We want to close up with Kick It, all right?
Yes.
And then Greg is going to hopefully fire up that website, to show us a few things.
Okay.
So as Greg mentioned, and Carol, of course, we're all aware that when manufacturing and production are threatened in the United States, the tobacco industry, they have global tentacles, that they then move these products, into. And for the most part, they move them into the Southern Hemisphere, of course. We know Canada made a move, last month, around some policy pieces, as well as results out of, taking some action around the ban of sale and what that has done to, the Black community there. But we know that, right now, Zimbabwe, is looking at tobacco to boost its economy post-COVID. We are aware of the fact that, the Chinese, are moving in around tobacco, cultivation in Namibia, in South Africa, the land of my birth. When the president, banned alcohol and tobacco, I mean, folk went crazy.
They lost their mind.
I
Yes.
mean, they lost their mind. They were about to march to the union buildings and take the president out. Lord have mercy, just because of that. And so it's real. Hookah, is an epidemic, in South Africa. And I'm talking about hookah lounges. I'm talking about hookah just on the corner, or on the grass in the front yard. And of course, it's happening in other countries such as, Senegal. And I've been privileged to work with MPOP, in continuing that international work. Because Kel started that, a couple of years ago by pulling together a cohort of faith leaders, from California, Namibia, and South Africa. We've been on a journey, the last couple of months around just learning more and more about, the predatory practices, but also how we can be proactive in terms of our response to this as a faith community, connect our spirituality with our agency to see how we can facilitate that. I'm going to ask Carol to share a little bit more about, how this is, happening, and Greg, you can do so as well. But Carol, you want to just share a little bit about this global connection?
Sure. So you and I were talking about how tobacco brought us over here from the motherland. That was the original crop that slave Africans were brought over to the Americas to work these tobacco fields, and now it's reuniting us on the other direction, because we are. Luckily have been able to bring in our brothers and sisters on the continent. And in my presentations over the past, 20 years, when I talk about our community, I would highlight that we have the same issues as our brothers and sisters in Africa, and that our neighborhoods often operate like little underdeveloped African countries within the confines of the richest country in the world, which is the United States of America. And so we're locked in. My neighborhood where I grew up looks real different in the city of San Francisco, which is a small city, than if you go out in the avenues where I would bust myself out to get a good education and go to a good high school. So that being said, we have been able to link up through we have a leadership group. And so the tobacco industry funding that we're using, and we're not using state funding for the international portion. We found some other funding for that. But we've been able to link up our faith leaders to see the commonalities and the issues and to support each other. So while we're always looking as African Americans at what we're doing for Africa, it's been nice to get the support of our African brothers and sisters to say, we want to stop these products from being sold to our children in America. We are the children of Africa, and we don't want our children victimized by these multinational companies. And with that being said as well, we know that the industry goes where it has the least restriction, where it can do whatever it wants to do, and it goes where there are young populations. And so Africa has a very young population. There are many countries now with disposable income. So Nigeria is a big one, South Africa, Ghana, Senegal, and people who are emulating us in many ways, African Americans. And now that just as you're here, there's so many African immigrants who are here who now have raised their children, first generation kids who are raised here but have a foot in both places. And so that the transplantation of these issues, that's where this fight will move more and more. And so we've had to give special attention to hookah, which has been getting an exemption on a lot of our state and local bills, because it's played out as this cultural thing, when actually hookah's tobacco. It kills you when you sit down and have a hookah session. That's like smoking a pack of cigarettes. And we're seeing this proliferation of hookah, especially with our young professional African. My daughter's in Atlanta, went down there to go to school in state. So all the HBCU kids, California parents who are paying for that, like I did, they're down there hookahing it up, because that has become the thing. We're seeing it in South Africa. So we need to understand that. And the big companies will move into that, where it might start off being like a mom and pop, as vaping kind of started out, as people just kind of doing their own things. But where the money is and where they can come in and dominate the industry, the tobacco industry, they will do that. And so I have heard that they're getting ready to make a big move on Senegal and investing money to get that population. So we want to block that before it happens, because it's easier to block it before it happens, and once it proliferates and people have businesses, it's harder to stop, as we're seeing here. But the science must lead us. And so the science is It's not good to put burning products into your lungs, whether it's leaves or whether it's tobacco, whether it's hookah. That's not healthy. And that it's not healthy to put addictive products into your body, because that changes your brain chemistry and you will become addicted. Addiction is not about a personal weakness. It's about these products actually change your brain, the receptors in your brain, and they interfere with your reward mechanism and become the reward. And that's what addiction. And there's a wonderful film called Addiction Inc. And it really describes how the tobacco industry researched how to make cigarettes more addictive. And some of that, there are products in there that actually freebase the nicotine. When crack came, cocaine, people were they were freebasing, and they're freebasing the nicotine. So there are just so many intricacies of this, and we want people to really understand what's going on. So to have our faith leaders and to have this as it's an international issue, and we need to approach it that way and use it also to build our relationships and our collaborations, as Dr. Val said, and to do other things where we're building our people up and building capacity.
Absolutely. Remember, folks, the tobacco industry is a transnational, industry, and so our fight has to be transnational. That's very, very important. Dr. Bolden, I want to, transition to you, as we move, towards closure. On this, International No Menthol Sunday, we're going to ask for screen sharing, because we do want to just show you the website, about, the resources that are available. And again, today is really, it's a culmination of what has happened already, but it's a springboard for what still needs to happen. And so we want to just show you, how you can check out these resources for you. And we're going to be doing, some more work, around this. So, Dr. Bolden, I know, you are in conversation with, the AME, church and some of our other, denominations around, the transnational, connection, that we are continuing to develop and to see how we can deploy, as we try to fight the good fight on both sides, and across borders. You want to share a little bit about that, and then also, the website.
Okay, I'm having a problem with the sharing at this moment, so.
Okay.
And
All right. So while you continue, to work that out, let me.
Can I say one thing about Dr.
ahead.
Karen Beard? So some of the local California resources are on the Amplify, its website, amplify.love. That is the website. And we have Dr. Karen Beard, who is our cessation specialist and is heading up our efforts. And so because of the work we're doing, we're all becoming cessation specialists, how to get people to kick it and quit it. So we have someone who is a licensed, she actually lost her husband to smoking, and she holds your hand to help you access the existing services that we have paid for as California taxpayers in particular. And so we want people to know that that's available and that she really approaches it. One size does not fit all. She really can tailor things, individual things. Many of the issues where smokers had to declare the date when they were going to quit. And so I know I want to lose some weight, but if you ask me, do I want to start a diet today? I would say not today. So it's not about declaring that date when you're going to quit, but getting you ready to get ready to quit. So we want to encourage smokers or their families to access the amplify.love website. And there's a special page where you can put your information in, and she can help you even as a family member, because nagging doesn't help. I have smokers. I don't nag people. I don't even talk about it anymore. Every once in a while I will. So how to best approach this as we all dig in as a community to support and uplift our Black smokers.
Yeah, and what I appreciate.
Carol, oh, I was just going to say, Carol, thank you for that information. And Pastor Sauls, I gave the host back to you. If you could pull up the website, that would be great. It seems that I'm having a little bit of a difficulty with my computer here on this end. And while you're doing that, I just wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Beard. She and we have had a number of conversations. And one of the things that we've talked about is when we're looking at the elimination of menthol within our community, we have to have smoking cessation programs that address us at our community level and where we are within our communities, within our context, our culture, because we're all not the same. When we talk about Blacks and African Americans, we're not all all not the same. There's a different culture. We talk about our geography and we talk about the content that we are actually faced with. And each year, because we talk about within the Center for Black Health and Equity, this is an opportunity for faith communities to address the detrimental impact of tobacco within our communities. And this is not just for the Christian community. When we say the faith community, it is for the entire faith community. And it spills over into our community-based organizations that have a faith base. It will impact, and it spills over to within the United States, that are community-based organizations that are addressing health issues within the African American community and other communities as well. We don't want to say that this is just for the Black folks. This is who we target, but we encourage other communities to utilize the materials that we have available on our website to actually address the issues within their own social their own social sphere. So within your communities, we actually put out the information, and we made it available for anyone to utilize and download. We have our toolkit. We have videos that are there from previous years. We have a coloring book for the children to help educate the children. We have one of our partners within Wisconsin who has developed a myriad of materials that are available to be downloaded and they can be utilized. So what we do is we want you to make this your own. And we're here at the Center and Amplify and AATCLC, the African American Tobacco, I'm being tongue-tied, African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council, yes, to actually work with you to actually address those issues within your communities so that you can come back to us and we can actually help in addressing those issues at the community level, but not only at the community level, but also at the policy level. We're working with the AME Church, the International Health Commission, who is operating in 40 countries. We're working with our group with the Wisconsin African American Tobacco Prevention Network, Amplify, of course, but we're expanding beyond our borders because we know the tobacco industry, once they lose a grip here in the United States, they will go like they follow like electricity, the least path of resistance, and they'll go in and they'll actually address or try to convince those who are in those communities to succumb to tobacco and the tobacco industry's poison. So it makes the menthol makes the poison go down easier. We don't want that to be the tagline for our other communities. We want to actually cut the head of the snake off today.
Amen.
So Pastor
Mm-hmm.
Saul, if you can pull up the website to show folks, I'm not able to do it on this computer at the moment.
We're going to try and do that. Let me ask Carol to quickly share a little bit about Kick It, and just let us know about that, because I know we're going to be talking about how to pull some faith leaders together around this and how we can,
Yes.
organize and mobilize,
Yes.
Post-COVID through our congregations.
Yes. So this is a sneak preview, but the California Department of Public Health, our California Tobacco Control Program, we are rebranding the No Butts, and so it will now be Kick It. And actually, there's a webinar coming out this Friday to give us more information. But they're going to, embrace technology. So before you would call in, but there'll be all different ways for smokers to get assistance. So if you want to just get on the website, if you want social media, if you want text, there are all kinds of different things, and there'll be more resources. There are currently, I think LA County, you can get the patch for free. There are all kinds of different things. So if you will go to amplify.love, and we can help you to navigate that, to find out, because we're, more than just Southern California here, to help you navigate, to find out the resources in your area. And also family members. Family members play a crucial role. So how to, and Dr. Karen Beard is an expert on that, of how to help people to talk to people in the best way so that you have, you meet less resistance and meet people where they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. I'm looking forward to Kick It and to see how we can connect.
And we still have a few small pots of funding for if there's still faith organizations. As Greg said, it could be a synagogue, it could be a mosque, it could be a community-based organization with some type of spiritual affiliation. We still have some small $500 pots of funding to help organizations who want to roll out, because today is No Menthol Sunday, but it's No Menthol every day. And so this is an ongoing process, so that you can get on the amplify.love website as well, or go to Saving Black Lives. There you can put your information in and we will get in touch with you, because we want to roll that out and get folks involved and build those ongoing relationships.
Yeah. I'm going to ask Greg if you can give us that website. We're having a challenge pulling it up, but just give it to us where folk can get the resources, and then when we send the link out, we'll connect it with that. Can you give us that website?
Yes. The website is nomentholsunday.org.
There you have it. nomentholsunday.org. And this year's theme is a new day. And that theme, of course, is based on the scripture out of Isaiah 43, 18 and 19. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. We are part of connecting, with, these various organizations to see how it is that we can organize and mobilize to facilitate this way in the wilderness, to see how it is that we can bring, streams into wasteland. That's what it's about. And so as we close, we want to just, let you know it is so important that together, as we bring faith and health together, what we encourage you to do is to see how you can know yourself, how you can love yourself, how you can respect yourself, and then how you can protect yourself. You have agency to do that. And if there's one thing that the faith community is responsible for, is to see how we can facilitate a spirituality that can advance and enhance that agency. This has been a long fight. It is an ongoing fight, and we ain't giving up.
No, we're not. We're doubling down.
We're doubling down because for us, it's about truth, it's about tenacity, and it's about transformation. That's our destination. And we've been referring to the tobacco industry throughout, our time together today, as the Goliath. And that's appropriate. It's not intimidating to us, because as people of faith, especially the Christian faith, we know how that story ends between David and Goliath. So I say to my colleagues, who are, rolling with, this enemy called, big tobacco, you got to choose. As Joshua said, choose ye this day. You're going to be on Goliath's side, right, or you're going to be on David's side.
That's right.
As for me and my house,
that's right.
I'm going to roll with David.
Amen.
Because in the end, that for me is what faith is about. And we're so glad. We want to thank Carol Gruder for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So glad that she was in the studio
Happy to
with
see
me.
you, Pastor Sauls.
She just got back, and from traveling, and so she's bringing in, that beautiful and wonderful spirit, and it's a fighting spirit. Let me tell you that. Dr. Val, thank you for being with us. And making time for us. We know that your schedule was busy this weekend, but we're glad we grabbed you early in the morning. So we really appreciate that. And then all the way from the ATL.
All right.
Dr. Greg Bolden, appreciate you, my brother, and looking forward to our ongoing, work together. We also want to thank Felicia here at Morris Media for always, making it work for us and making it happen. Much love to you and Morris. Who is always, you don't know where Morris is, but just know that he's watching you and that, he's going to make sure that you are safe. This has been Faith Without Borders, emanating from South Los Angeles. Glad that you could join us. Let's keep on keeping on and continue to facilitate beloved community. Peace.
Right. Peace out.